Batman is finally hitting theaters tonight. I've gotten to see the film twice before release, and I'm very much excited to provide you guys my brand new The Batman ranking. This is every live action and animated movie that may have hit theaters that features Batman. Now, as a point of reference, there are a couple older versions, such as the 1943 and 1949 versions of Batman and Joker, that are not included in this list, but any other thing that has ever hit theaters that had Batman in it, that will be on this list. But make sure, guys, to provide your guys' thoughts, your ranking down below in the comment section, because this is my list. We're probably going to disagree, and that is completely okay. As well as make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking more Batman and other sorts of movies and TV content over here on a daily basis. Coming down at my number 14 is probably the most disgraceful thing that you could possibly imagine, and that is Justice League, whatever you want to call it. There's not much that I can say about this one that everyone has not already mentioned. Everything on the production scale from behind the scenes, this movie was just a disaster. As well as when you look at the character of the Batman, even when I had initially seen this and thought, okay, that was pretty good, I guess, but then when you see Zack Snyder's Justice League, you think to yourself, that's the version we were supposed to get originally? That version's perfect! And everyone's definitely going to disagree on that statement. Maybe some people will agree, maybe they won't. But seriously, looking at Justice League itself, my biggest issue with this film was actually how they portrayed Batman. Batman was a complete badass in Batman v Superman, and I just honestly found him to be kind of a pussy in this movie and really was not my cup of tea. Now at my number 13, this is going to show my age absolutely, and that is Adam West's Batman. Now, I find this to be kind of campy and fun for what it is. It absolutely knows what it is, and Adam West is a really good Bruce Wayne, and I've always really liked his kookiness into the style. I mean, he really much was a big piece of the Batman history and making this character so mainstream at the time. The thing with this movie, though, is it does not hold up. It's fun for what it is, but when you go back and you are so used to all the dark and brooding Batman stuff that we're getting nowadays, I've never been a fan of the more fun craziness vibe that those movies have, and even some of the comics that had come out around the time. So for me, this is my least favorite one. This is one of the ones that I just don't care to rewatch. And a lot of this list will be based on how much do I want to rewatch this, analyze, discuss, or even on an entertainment level. So keep that in mind. My number 12, though, is Batman and Robin. Now, as a complete guilty pleasure, this is this movie. This is the definition of that, because as a kid, I absolutely loved this movie. Growing up, as I got older, I started to realize, no, this movie sucks. And it sucks to today's standards. But I do still like Arnold as Mr. Freeze, even though almost every line he has in this movie is complete cheese.
Killed the dinosaurs. The Ice Age.
I still like him. I like the design. I like a lot of the costumes, besides the Bat Nipples one. That one was just stupid. For me, this movie, it's exactly what it's supposed to be. I think with a darker approach, George Clooney could have become a really great Batman and Bruce Wayne. This movie just kind of tries to harken back towards the Adam West days while still retaining some of the darker vibes from the Keaton universe. Even in that realm, this is the movie that absolutely killed the Batman franchise for quite a couple of years. And it sucks to say that. It seems like they had everything that could have been successful for this one, and it just never was. Don't even get me started on the stuff between Batman and Robin, and of course, even Poison Ivy. It's just not great. But I will say the big thing that always works in here is Alfred, and of course even his sickness that he has in here. I think as an emotional moment, those are important things to have in this film. Now, my number 11 is Batman Forever. I want to love this movie, and apparently there is a darker version of it out there. Release the Schumacher cut. I mean, I want to see that version, because watching it from this point of view now, as I'm watching this film, I just go as far to say, it could be better, because Batman Forever is a decent movie that Val Kilmer is giving it his complete all. I actually think as a Bruce Wayne, he is one of the best. But the problem with this movie is easily the takes, the editing. This movie tries to go so crazy and so weird that, of course, Batman and Robin went completely down that path, but completely it should have been darker. And I think if it went more with the darker vibe, like how Keaton had it, I would have really come to love this movie, because there's just so many different things and clashing of tones that completely disrupt this movie. I will say, though, I really dig the action in here. I thought the action was fun, and there are some fun twists and turns to have in here. Jim Carrey is kind of fun as the Riddler, even though I don't think he's like a definitive version of it, but it is Jim Carrey, so you do have fun with him in there. Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face is absolutely while again, completely going above and beyond. It seems like he's in a different movie at times. He's fun in here, to say the least. Robin, I will say, I don't love Robin in this movie. I wish I did, and every time I watch it, I do want to, but I do think Val Kilmer is the reason that this does rise above and beyond. And for me, honestly, if you just take out the clashing tones, I think that might actually help the film a lot. Now at my number 10, and a lot of you guys might be coming after me on this one, but 10 and up, I love, pretty much. So my number 10 is Michael Keaton's first Batman. I really liked this movie, and I think at the time it was a game changer, making Batman, again, a mainstream hero, and really much showing comic book movies can work in this vein, especially when you're looking at a bunch of different things that, of course, the DC was already doing, and maybe even Marvel was starting to. I like this movie a lot, and I think for me, some elements do not hold up whatsoever, especially when it comes down to the tone and certain things that Keaton wanted to do that I actually think in his sequel to this works a lot better. But for me, Keaton, I think, was a big surprise to people at the time that he is a great Batman, and he continues to be, and we're going to be getting more of him. I think as Batman, he's great. As Bruce Wayne, he's also great, even though he has those, like, kissy duck lips, which is just really funny, but love the suit, it's iconic, and Jack Nicholson is absolutely terrifying as the Joker, even if he is having a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of good comic book accuracy to this, and I love the city of Gotham. The Batmobile in this has probably never been beaten before. I think this is still, like, the best live action Batmobile that we've ever gotten, and of course Danny Elfman's score is perfection. Lots of fun to be had in here, but for me, a lot of the moments in here still don't hold up to today's standards, and it does have a couple pacing issues when you go back to revisit it. On my number 9, we have the Lego Batman movie. Now this was a complete satire to what Batman is in the entire world of the DC universe, and I found this movie to be an absolute charmer. This is my favorite Lego movie to date, and I just love this. I love the way that Will Arnett plays the role of Batman. Zach Galifianakis as the Joker was also perfection, and kind of their chemistry with one another was really important. This is a movie I like to go back to and revisit every so often because I find it to be so much fun, and I think that's a big thing. It's a great turn off your brain, watch, and just completely enjoy, and I love the satire elements about how Batman is always alone and maybe one day does need a partner. A lot of fun elements to be had in there, and it sucks we'll probably never get a sequel to this. Now, my number 8, we have the Tim Burton sequel, Batman Returns, which is dark, brutal, well, not brutal, but crazy, and absolutely completely Tim Burton style. I love this movie. This movie completely holds up. The Christmas Gotham vibe is awesome. Danny DeVito as the Penguin is scary. The way that he rips someone's face off, like, Jesus Christ, this movie was supposed to be made for kids. McDonald's even had issues with that. But as well, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman is iconic. And the way that all three of these characters intertwine inside this entire story is a lot of fun. And this is, again, a movie that I feel like either you love, like, or just kind of maybe even hate. I've seen some hatred for this movie lately, but for me, I love it, and I think this is one of the best Batman films yet. Now at my number 7, this is where we're going to start dividing some people. Batman v Superman Ultimate Edition. I'm not ranking the original, because that would be at the bottom of this. I do think the Ultimate Edition does a lot of differences in here, in the way that it kind of builds up between Batman and Superman, and the kind of differences in their ideologies and everything of that, and I think it's actually pretty brilliant in the Ultimate Edition. But the thing I love about this, and just ranking it from a pure Batman standpoint, I love Ben Affleck in this. He has one of the best Batman action sequences, if not the best one yet to live action date that Zack Snyder brought to us in The Warehouse, and I love a dark, brooding, and really much I don't give a shit Batman anymore. All a Dark Knight Returns type of vibe, which you've never seen that if you've never seen that cartoon before, or read the comic, you absolutely should. That is my favorite interpretation of Batman. My second favorite interpretation is a young, just starting out Batman in his first few years of being Batman. But for me, I love what Ben Affleck was able to bring to this role. And it sucks that we will never get a solo film of his, but I really loved Batman v Superman for what we got with the Batman content. And of course, the fight between Batman and Superman. Every time I watch it, I come to appreciate it even more, and I find it to be so epic. Now at my number 6, we have The Dark Knight Rises. This was the finale to, of course, the entire Dark Knight trilogy, and honestly, I see a lot of this movie getting hate, but I love it. Tom Hardy as Bane was perfection, and I think Bane in here has such, even though I don't like his death, I think he has so much greatness to him, showing that Bane's more than just the muscles, but he was the one that broke the bat mentally and physically. Adding in as well as the finale to this entire trilogy, coming off The Dark Knight, which is arguably, again, one of the best comic book movies ever for a lot of different people. When I look at this movie, how did you think it was going to succeed? It had a lot going for it, and I feel like it does almost hit those levels, even though it does have some weird moments, and it is a little bit overly strong, but for me, I love this movie just as a pure Batman fan and just as a big Christopher Nolan fanboy. I love seeing how this movie was able to be portrayed, and for me, I also think shout out to Anne Hathaway, Selena Kyle, she's great. Before we get to our top 5, guys, once again, make sure to leave your guys' comments, your thoughts, your rankings all down below, as well as making sure to hit that like and subscribe button because I love talking movies and TV with you guys, and I want to have you guys along for the ride. If you're interested in seeing movies early, make sure to head on over to Sandwich on Films as well, and again, let's get back to the conversation. My number 5, we have Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Now, I'm a major fan of the Batman animated series as well as the Batman Beyond series. I grew up with both of those heavily, and while I didn't include Mask or Return of the Joker from Batman Beyond because that technically was not released live action, I had to include Mask of the Phantasm, which I never got to see in theaters, but I remember watching on TV for the first time and being completely, utterly in love with it. I love this mystery, and I love how the Phantasm is a brand new Batman villain that I actually hope one day we happen to see in live action. Look at Harley Quinn. She was created just for the show, and now she's one of the most popular Batman iconic characters out there. In fact, she's leading Suicide Squad movies at this point, and even comics. Phantasm is a very interesting movie, and out of all the Batman movies besides the latest one, this is one of the few that actually pertains and has that detective element that I have been wanting to see in a Batman movie, and I'm so happy we got it in the new Robert Pattinson one because, again, Batman is one of the world's greatest detectives, and we want to see that. So for me, Mask of the Phantasm, him trying to find out, and also him just having these perplexed ideas like, should I be Batman? Should I be Bruce Wayne? What should I do? Plus, the animation still holds up to today. I love this movie. At my number 4 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, on a pure film standpoint, this is one of my favorite film experiences that I've ever gotten. Never thought we'd get this version, at least not for quite a couple more years, and the fact that we did get it last year on HBO Max blew my mind away. They actually turned, like, Zack Snyder's version of Batman, we get to see continue and progress from Batman v Superman to this in such a stylistic and perfect way, in my opinion, and I love it. I love seeing him lead the Justice League. I love seeing him get a lot more moments as Bruce Wayne because I love his portrayal as Bruce Wayne, and his Batman who has this shape and ideology after seeing what Superman had done to save the world. I love what Zack Snyder was able to bring to that, and for me, he actually gets some awesome bat sequences. The bat car chase is way better in this version than it was in the Justice League. I love the stylist takes to it, and even him taking on some of these demonic flying things that I cannot remember the name of. I'm sure a lot of you guys will let me know down below in the comment section, but I really love this movie, and I just love Ben Affleck's portrayal in here. So again, on an entertainment standpoint, it's at my number 4. At my number 3, this is where I'm going to lose a lot of you, The Dark Knight.
What did he say?
I love this movie, and I love Heath Ledger's portrayal as the Joker, and I love Christian Bale as Batman, especially mostly him as Bruce Wayne, and I love Harvey Dent, like Aaron Eckhart's. I think he is such an underrated actor, but The Dark Knight is a heist movie from Christopher Nolan with Batman in it, and that's how it is, and it works in that style. But for me, when I look at Batman, I prefer 2 other movies to this because for me, in this instance, I feel that those other 2 kind of get the character down a little bit better. But that doesn't go anything against this movie because if we're just rating it on a movie standard, I would probably get your argument that The Dark Knight is probably one of the greatest movies ever made, as well as the greatest comic book movie ever made, even if I feel like there's certain things that aren't the greatest within when it comes down to its characters. It's like these top 3, I love each and every one of them, but for me, The Dark Knight is a movie that I never got to see in theaters, and maybe that does go down to my perspective. I saw it after all the hype, but I still continue to go back and watch this. That is one of the best intros to any single movie and comic book film of all time. I love how Nolan directs this movie. It's visceral, it's fierce, and it has some of the best performances ever. Again, love this movie, but there's 2 more that I feel like get the Batman's character down perfectly, just as much as The Dark Knight did, but these other 2 that we're about to talk about, you'll understand, I hope. At my number 2, we have Batman Begins, which is, for me, I feel like the best out of the Nolan trilogy because it actually feels like a Batman movie, and they bring Gotham to life in such a unique way, where after this, I didn't feel like they really kept the character of Gotham, because when you have Batman, the next biggest thing is that character of Gotham and how important it is, and for me, Batman Begins understands that and more, and I love Christian Bale's portrayal as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Seeing this origin story I've always been a big fan of, and seeing this is my favorite suit that Christian Bale actually wore, even though it looks completely uncomfortable. Batman Begins, for me, I loved how they had Ra's al Ghul in here, and Scarecrow, and how the entire city was kind of, you know, leading up to the entire thing. They're trying to poison the city, trying to poison the water so everyone feels these hallucinations. There's a lot of great elements in here, and again, pertaining to 2 big elements for me when it comes down to Batman is containing Batman as a character, but also the city that you're putting him in. And for me, the city of Gotham is in such a lively, dirty hood that they actually brought to life in here. And even adding in, I feel like for me in this one, the reason that I love Batman Begins so much is I am a sucker for an origin story, or that very first movie in the series, to see how did they get started, how did they get to where they were, and we see it very much fleshed out entirely in this film. But at my number 1, sure, a lot of you guys will be like, well, Zach, you just saw it. Well, I've seen it twice. And after the first time, I thought this is possibly one of the best Batman films. Thinking on it more, I started to agree with that. And then solidifying that second, and again, that second viewing, I was like, no, this is the best Batman movie yet, especially as an adaptation from the comics. I love Batman as old. I love a grizzled, old, beat up, fucked up Batman. I also love a young version of Batman who's trying to still find his place in Gotham City, and that's what the Batman is. It's also a crime noir showing off why he is the greatest detective in the world, and we get to see him actually solving a mystery, which is something I did not expect to see, and I was thoroughly engaged with the entire way through. Robert Pattinson is absolutely incredible and probably ever seen in a comic book film. He, for me, is the definitive Batman. I'm not ready to say if he's my favorite yet. That's why I'm going to go see it a third time before I film my actor ranking one, but I mean, for me, I wanted more of him as Bruce Wayne, and that's like really like my only complaint, I guess, to the movie, but I do love how he was Batman 95% of the time in this film. You see why he understands. What is this entire movie? While it's still, yeah, he's trying to figure out what's going on in this, what is the detective nature, which is awesome. For me in this, Robert Pattinson, though, what is the Batman to the city of Gotham, to the villains, and to other heroes that might be along in the shadows? What does he symbolize? This is an origin story for that. And I love seeing that because this Gotham doesn't understand who he is. Villains get that, no, this guy's a fucking crazy maniac and he's going to come after and beat my ass, which you see very much throughout this. And the action's visceral, it's great, it's dark, it's angsty. And the car chase in here between him and Penguin is like perfection. But I loved how Matt Reeves captured Gotham City. It's my favorite version of Gotham. It's my favorite version of Batman. Again, Bruce Wayne, I need to see a little bit more of, but I can't get this movie out of my mind. And my expectations were sky high. This was my most anticipated film of the entire year. Or not even the entire year, maybe my entire life. And the sequel will probably be the same thing because it's one of the greatest comic book films for me ever made. It hit every single layer that I wanted it to, and they absolutely hit my expectations for where it needed to. And again, my expectations were this high, and it hit right then and there and gave me exactly what I wanted to possibly give as, again, one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, but easily the best Batman movie ever made. That's where we're going to disagree, and that's completely fine. So again, guys, leave your guys' comments, your thoughts, all sorts of things down below in the comment section because I got to hear yours on this. What is your ranking? If we disagree, that's completely fine, but I can't wait to read your guys' thoughts down below. Of course, again, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Head on over to Sandwich on Films on how to see films early, and of course, until next time, stay classy.